So, learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere. A very good evening, everyone present here. I, Yashashvi Tiwari, co-team member of Azure Developer Community Dehradun, welcomes you all in today's session of AZ-104 Bootcamp. So, on our day 3, we have Mr. Samik Roy with us. He is a lead cloud developer at Open System, community speaker and contributor, helping customer to use Microsoft Sentinel at scale. Loves to tell stories with the data. But before that, I would like to mention one thing. Like at the end of the session, we will also announce our Week 1 challenge winner. So stay tuned, guys. Over to you, Shamik.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks a lot to the whole team for bringing me in. And then I'd like to thank you, everyone who have joined in a Saturday evening, right? So, with that said, myself, Samik, as I was introduced, and I'll not go in much detail. Let me try to share my screen and share screen. Yes. Now, you should be seeing my screen, and even if you can confirm on the chat. Hey, everyone. So, yep, I think let me share my screen as well. Well, so again, before I begin, I'd like to thank the developer community, and then thank you all again, for taking your time on a Saturday evening. And this session is the third session in the series. And before this, I think you already have, some of you might have attended. And for those who couldn't take out the time, we have the recordings available in YouTube. All right. So you can definitely go and look at them anytime. They're really great. And I would recommend them to watch them. Right. And that'll definitely add some more context to this session as well. And talking about the previous sessions, there were introduction about Azure and the certification, and the next one was basically the details further to it. Now, let me start with a very unique thing here. you know um, this is a great initiative by Microsoft, specifically to help you all, even who are actually studying, or early at your career, right? Or even if you have some experience but maybe trying to get new into cloud. We are trying to offer AZ-104, so that's the exam code, right? So that if you attend all these sessions, that can help you to write the exams. And having said that, there is a lot of Microsoft documentation. If you just search for AZ-104, you will get them, and they're really really great. So again, I'd say please have a look at them. And once you have your Microsoft account, right, you can just earn the badges of completion as well on the training piece, right? So with that, I would again skip my introduction, which is already done. So let's go for today. So today's checklist, right? So today we're gonna learn a bit about storage. So before I start that, let me ask you this question to everyone, right? um, Anybody have any hint? I mean, why do we need even storage? Feel free to paste in the comment, or write it's just your thoughts. This may not be just no right no wrong answer, but feel free to type in something. I mean, why do you think we need storage, or do we need it at all? Wonderful. Yep. So definitely, I can really see some good answers: to preserve a document, to store the data, to store our website, things like that. So yeah. um, so now with that said, if we just click on the next one, and let's see if we can go to the next one. So As we know that we need data, and then we'll be basically covering a couple of points right over here. So it's like, each individual itself is a topic though. So we talk about the fundamental here: configuring a storage account, configuring a blob account, configuring storage security, and file syncs, and there's also, the tools around it. So fundamentally what we are going to learn today is basically, what a storage account is. And over and at a high level, storage account is nothing but a container where there are subsets to it. It can be a blob storage, it can be a file storage, it can be a table storage, and so on, right? And that choice you can make based on your data structure or based on your application needs. And all those things are wrapped around a container called Azure Storage Account, right? So, and definitely when you talk about doing something in cloud in Azure, right, there are obviously multiple ways. For example, we can use Azure Portal, which I have planned a demo for, right? Or we can use PowerShell, or we can use CLI, Azure command line interface, which I also will be sharing you a little bit about, right? How we can leverage that, and why that is important, right? And then there are ARM templates, Azure Resource Manager templates, and management client, things like that. So there are different ways to provision. The first thing is, the first question we should ask ourselves: okay, we need the data, in what format we want to keep the data. That's the first question, right? That will be the deciding factor of, after you create a storage account, what should be the next one. Is it like a blob storage? For example, if you want to have a social media application wherein you have really good amount of photos taken, uploaded by everyone, right? So we might need to choose blob storage, and then all the photos will be stored as a kind of blob storage, right? Now let's say there is an application you're building out which needs the files to be stored physically, right? So it has to be in file format. Then we go for Azure File or file syncs, right? So these are some of examples with that, right? And definitely. And yeah. So to configure a storage account, right, we would love to see that how do we implement a storage account, and would also explore the storage account. And then, as I mentioned earlier, right, on the kind of storage account we can have. And we will also talk about, for example, uh, the native feature of the cloud is replication, right? For example, you want to store your data in East Asia, Southeast Asia, or East US, or maybe West US, both the places. So that if something happens in your East US region, you always have a backup of your data, application data available in West US. So similar to that, we can have replication. Based on our replication strategies, we can define what kind of, redundancy we need in terms of replication. Now, we will also talk about how to access the storage, right? So, for example, if we store the data in a blob storage, right, there are a couple of ways. We can use our Active Directory account to use them, or maybe we can use a SAS token, right? SAS token is like, that there's a token created in the portal. We can create that, and then with that particular URL, we can access that file to a particular period of time, right? So that's kind of a thing we're gonna look at today and learn today, right? And obviously when you talk about there are different way to access it, we also need to keep in mind that we should be able to secure them, right? It's not that it's an open public storage, and then it is accessible by everyone so that everybody can read your data. That's not something we should be doing. We should be always thinking through securing our data endpoints, right? Now, coming to the implementation part of it, right? So the first thing we understand, it's gonna be Azure Storage Account is again a storage container offered by Azure, which is kind of gonna be durable, secure, scalable, managed, and accessible. So those terms look different, but they have like a different inner meaning. So durable in the sense it has like you can scale it up, and then it is secure, right? It's like you can control the access, who can see and who cannot see your data, right? And there are different ways you can make this data available, keeping the security intact. And when you talk about scalability, yeah, there are different scaling options, and then you don't need to worry about the volume to data. You can keep it, with really a big amount of data into storage account. And also it's also managed. So managed in the sense there are parental controls, like as an administrator, right, which is the fundamental of the course. As an administrator, you should be able to manage database. So it's like you should be able to tune the storage account in right manner, and then it has to be managed in a way that it doesn't increase in terms of cost, it doesn't increase in terms of size. So it's like it has to be managed in an optimized way. And after all this, it obviously has to be accessible, right? If it is not accessible, then there's no point in keeping data, right? So that's another thing I'd say to talk about here. Now, storage for, and obviously I can also use the storage account for a virtual machine, and then any other options. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, you're creating a virtual machine, you can use storage for that virtual machine, or maybe you're creating an Azure function, right? You can use storage account for that. So it's not only a custom application which uses a storage account, it also, it's also kind of, there are Azure offerings, for example, Azure functions and other virtual machines, which helps you to take support of the Azure storage account to store the data, right? And from a data quality, we have premium, we have standard, and then we will definitely look at different options. What is good over premium over what is good in premium over standard, right? So the next one is, if we look at the different categories, right? So as I mentioned in the past, that storage account is a parental container wherein we can have Azure queues, we can have Azure files, we can have Azure tables, and we can have Azure blobs. And depending on that, depending on what kind of data structure you have, you should be able to get to the things over here, right? So, yep. So, any questions so far? Okay, no questions so far. I can see one question: difference between file objects. Yeah, we'll definitely discuss in details. Thanks for the question on that, and then yeah, and just to answer to the chat again, we would be having some practicals. So I'm just trying to get to a stage where we can set the understanding at a basic level, and then I'm going to jump onto Azure portal, and then show you a live creation of storage account and the different components to it, right? Yep. So now, starting at the different type of data storage accounts, right? One is Azure queue. So, well, again, if you want to store a text, you want to store a binary data like zero ones, right? It's like a queue wherein you want to pass on and keep on making a big data set. You can always use, you know, Azure queue. Next one is Azure file, and this is ideal. For example, you're building an application, or you want to have a storage where there is no structured data. Let's say you want to store an image, or you want to store a video, or you want to store maybe a flat format, flat file, right? So they are not relational, so you cannot compare a video and an image, right? There are no common attributes. Mostly there are no common attributes. There are some like name and description, things like that, but they are not in different, they're not in the same hierarchy, or no total relational structure. again, you can store even a JSON file with them, or maybe with a CSV file with them, in all together in files. So that's something we look at files, right? And the next one is Azure Table. So that's like the name itself says, right? So if you want to have a reliable interim channel between an application wherein you can just post data and store it in a reliable section, and then you pass the message to another application, that's where you go for table storage, right? And obviously the last one is Azure Blob, and then it is like managed file share on premises deployment. So Blob is like the bigger container, right? So let's say you have a virtual machine image kept somewhere, right? Where to keep it is like you can keep the entire VHD file into Azure Blob, and that can be picked up during your VHD or VM image deployments. Or maybe you have a zip file, which is your web applications binaries, right? So let's say you're building a .NET application, you can put your zip files over there, and then your DevOps pipeline or maybe your deployment tool can pick it up from there, and then share it across or push it across all the IIS services or IIS sites. And the same way, like it can be also updated on a periodic basis, right? And yeah. So fundamentally, blob is like whatever the binary is large, right? So as I mentioned, like if you want to keep a virtual machine image, or maybe something like a big picture, or maybe a very big video image, that's how it is, right? Now, as I talked about general purpose V2, right now the latest version is V2, and then there are premium file shares. So based on the performance, right, what do you want? So definitely, because premium has better features, right, premium will be like more costly than the standard one. And then you can go to Azure cost calculator to understand the cost implication and then plan for the costing. But if we talk about the premium versus standard, right, so there is no much of yeah, I mean, just to answer that, different storage has different cost settings, and we will show you when we show the demo. All right. So in Azure, everything you spin up, mostly everything is associated to the cost. So now the more higher the more higher tier you go, for example, you want to go for a premium file share, that's definitely gonna cost you more than a standard a standard purpose file share, right? Because of the feature it offers, right? So it's more of a your throughputs and more of your performance metrics are little higher on the premium side. And on an enterprise scenario, like let's say an organization is having you know uh, like 1 lakh users, right? And you want to keep all your HR documents into one file share so that everybody in the organization can access it. Now for that to happen, maybe you can see premium file share is a lot better than the general purpose, because you have to make sure that everybody in the org should get the same throughput, should get the same accessibility towards the files, right? So that can be one example of having premium use case, right? And as you can see, security is hand in hand thing over here as when you go with this. So all storage accounts are encrypted using storage encryption service. Again, that's encryption within Azure. So even someone gets your data, or someone gets access physically to the machine, or though there are different layers of security, but if at all someone gets access to the file share or to the Azure storage account, right, until unless they are not authenticated, they will never be able to decrypt the data and never be able to see it. So that's why security is also considered, be it on any product. So there is no kind of security gaps between any tier you go here. The security feature, almost whatever you get, it's almost similar, both the cases. Yeah. So the next one is, as we have seen earlier, right? I mean, or one of the points I would say, the redundancy. And again, the redundancy goes with the need of the data and the sensitivity of the data. For example, if you want to keep your employee database, right, in that case you definitely need it to keep, it to be kept over multiple region. I'm not talking about very specific to storage account. I'm talking about replication strategies in general, right? So there will be, you can basically spread it across multiple regions, and you can spread to multiple geographies, you can spread to multiple geo redundancies spaces, and then fundamentally you can do nothing around it. So for example, as a developer, if I'm spinning up something, right, I don't need that to be scalable, or that to be like a replicable, replicable enabled, and that has to be replicable into 5 different zones or 5 other places, right? And as the feature itself says, it's basically going to copy your data into multiple spaces, right? So that definitely going to cost you something. But again, just because I'm talking cost a lot, that doesn't mean it really cost a lot. It just to understand the cost factor matters, right? So yeah. So now if I go to the next one, and you can see there are different levels of different levels of geo redundancies, right? You can go to 6 replicas even for a single data set. And again, that totally depends on your totally depends on your data sensitivity and data requirement. But whenever we are going to replicate or going for application strategies, right, we also need to think through the compliance of that particular country. So what I mean by compliance, so let's say there are European countries, at any cost they don't want their data to be outside in Europe. So whenever, though you need a scalability, right, whenever you are your scalability or availability, right, so whenever you are trying to replicate or apply the replication strategy, you should consider that fact, that what is my base region and how much I can spread across the data, right? So obviously that's another factor to count in, right? And as we talk about security and accessibility, right? Everything has a unique URL, and there are REST APIs, and then you can actually interact with CLI or Azure portal directly, also to access them. But fundamentally, the container is accessed at the name of the container, right, or the storage account name .blob .core .windows .net, right? The table is just instead of blob, the entire URL get replaced with table. The queue is just a replacement of table to queue, and file is again the file service, right? So that's how the URL is formed. So basically, if you look at any storage account we provide, right, or provision, so fundamentally it is going to provision certain APIs behind the scene, which you can see in the screen, and those APIs are accessible, and they are actually created for a better accessibility purposes. So what I mean by that, for example, whenever you're going to develop an application, right, you're not going to go to Azure portal and read the data, right? Your application has to have a you know it's like, whenever you are trying to write an application, the application has to be like, there has to be a way that application can talk to your data, and that's where the API comes in. So the good part here is like, with it a storage account, or any Azure water for that matter, whenever we try to create a resource, let's say it's a storage account, it creates a set of APIs behind the scene, and that gives the developer access, right, to interact with that particular product in Azure, may it be storage account, maybe any other service in Azure. So with that, we never need to worry about how to access the data, or we never need to write an API layer on top of it. We just focus on business layer, and how to connect data, or how to get the data, right, and what to show over there. So that's how it should be. Yeah. And the cherry on the top is like, if you want to configure it on a custom domain name, you can do it. So as the URLs are available, right, so definitely there's a DNS maintained internally by Azure, so you can actually modify that, and obviously depending on the right tier you choose. And just a quick note, maybe I can see a lot of interaction. I'm happy to pick them up, so please feel free to start having your questions, right? Whatever I can pick up, I will try to answer that within the session. But what's I can't, maybe towards the end, or you may be able to, you can reach out to me anytime on LinkedIn. I'm happy to assist you with all those answers. Yeah. So now, whenever we create a storage account, and we have been talking about security for some time now, right? So what happens is, whenever we create a storage account, it's like, you know, um, it's mostly around, the storage account is created, but it has to be under a virtual network, right? And that's like any storage account to create that can be shown in a network, and then that basically has to be covered on network, and we can control access at a network level as well, right? And yeah, I can see a wonderful question on cost, right? So in storage, there are a couple of things which basically where the cost is determined, and one of the fundamental thing is you never pay for the data you query. That's not how Azure builds it. Basically, on the data you keep. So that's the thumb rule. Yeah, there will be, like, if you are keeping the storage account with a particular network structure, that network might bill you something more. But from a storage standpoint, that's how the cost is. Yeah. Yep. So demo time. Let me try to pull up my subscription here, and I'm just take down this presentation for a moment. And what do I go with my, okay, I will minimize that. Okay, so I'll go to resource group. Hope you see still. If anyone can confirm in the chat, you see the Azure portal now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, because I have been using storage account for a while, so it comes in my favorite services. Now, this is Azure portal when you log in, and then I have some credits to create some stuff here. So there are a couple of ways we can create a storage account, right? One, we can click on create a resource, right? When you click on create a resource, what happens is, it basically gives you a laundry list of all the resources available in cloud, and you can basically either choose from, let's say, on the left hand side. If I just click on the storage, right? Please, is the front better now? Okay, thank you. So, as you can see, there are multiple product storage account, and all other Microsoft services as well, right? Now I'll quickly go back to the home page, and then there is another option also. You can just directly search for storage, right? When I search for storage, we could see storage accounts, and we're going to click on that, right? And you can see there are a couple of storage account is created over here. I already have. So the moment I selected the product, it listed me down all the storage account available, and we are going to click on create right now, right? The moment we kind of click on create, right? So we might give it a few moments, and you can see there is a big wizard came in, and then we will definitely talk through this. And this is one of the way we can provision Azure storage account. There are different ways as well. So right now I'll go with my Visual Studio subscription, and then I can choose one of the resource groups. So I've created resource group, one resource group here, right? Or you can, if you don't, you can create definitely a new one. So I would give it a new name, say dev dev community storage account. Now, one thing to learn, right? So the name I have given intentionally like lowercase and uppercase because if you look at, it says it can be between 3 to 24 characters and it has to be lowercase. So that's one of the ways to remember, how we should name the storage account. And when you talk about naming, it's basically, Microsoft has a naming convention, but maybe we can follow like SA storage account. I can give hyphen, so it doesn't let me give hyphen because that's not allowed. Storage account Azure Debcom 01. So I think this is not something, it's picked up. So it's like kind of unique name has to be given, right? So I'm trying to give some unique name. And on this wizard itself, um, if you want to know a little bit more about certain things, you can just hover on this eye icon and you can get the same error message what is expected here, right? The next one is East US, right? So you can see there is plenty of, options available. So I always go by East US maybe. And the next one is performance, right? And as I mentioned earlier, there's like standard and there is premium. So if I go by premium, right? So it can ask you like what kind of things premium feature you want to, you know, invest in. So now we jump back to standard, and the next part is by default, it is going to local redundant storage here, which is like lowest in the cost, right? And next one is geo redundant, right? That's like geographical, and then it's going to replicate into a secondary region. And there is like zone redundant. It's a good option protection against data center level protection. And obviously there is a geo redundant option as well. So depending on what's your data sensitivity and what exactly you are looking forward to kind of create here, right? So that's where you choose this. So again, this is a minimal subscription, so I'll keep it a little low here with locally selected one. And there are options like I can directly click on review and create, which is going to skip all these steps, but right now I don't want to do that. Just to show you, I'm going to go to next to advanced, right? So now if you talk about security, right, in the advanced, it asks require secure transfer for REST API operations. That means, we talked about APIs and we have seen storage account products has APIs. So by checking that, it will be like, making sure that your REST API calls are secured and send over the right encryption. And as I mentioned earlier, right? So let's say if we don't understand what this enable blob policy access means, it's like this means when a blob public is enabled, once permitted to configure, the ACL is anonymous and then so on and so on. That's how it tells you. Enable storage account key access. So it's like this is an optional checkbox, right? And this is one way to access, or one way is mostly used to access storage account is shared access signature. So that is going to be a key which will be attached at the end of the URL, and each key will have an expiry date, like a start date and end date. It's valid only during that. And you can use key, and then let's say, maybe once you create, after 6 months or after 2 months, we realize that, our key might be compromised, or there are people who might know our key. We can just swap the keys, or we can regenerate the keys, right? Now, default to act Azure Active Directory authorization in the portal. So I'm going to I'm going to uncheck it right now because we'll be looking at doing things with shared access signature itself, right? Now minimum TLS version, we'll always go with the latest. So, and it says what's the storage account data should be using. So we'll go with the 1.2 here. And okay, so this also tells you that do you really need, like, this is for big data analytics workload or file level access needed, right? Then you can enable a hierarchical data like storage, things like that. And we can also do some configuration on blob storage, like enabling SFTP, enabling network file share. And right now we will keep it allow as cross-tenant replication, and access tier is hot. So it's like frequently access data, day in day out user scenarios, and cold is it's like backup scenarios. So obviously when I say hot and cool, it's like it also depends on cost. So hot cost you higher and cool cost you lesser. That's how it should be. Enable large file shares, right? Now if you want to, maximum file share support can be 100 TBs, but again you should not be turning it on until unless it is absolutely necessary. And then once you do that, it loses the geo redundant storage functionality, right? And then yeah, now let me go to the next tab, networking, right? So networking is one network layer setting on top of the storage account. We can use a shared access network, for multiple storage account, but we can go for a new one as well. So right now the default one is kind of enable public access from all networks. So there's no bar, right? As long as they have the right access key. So this doesn't mean that by enabling this I'm just opening up the storage account for everyone. Not like that. It is just making the firewall or making the network enable so that the communication can happen. Obviously there are different ways to authenticate further. So I think we have one question, the data lake. So I'd go back to the previous slide, and then data lake storage for hierarchical namespaces accelerate big data analytics, right? So whenever we go talk about data lake needs multiple hierarchy. If I enable it, right? Yeah, you see, just adding a feature that makes you kind of a data lake, and those are mostly kind of big data scenarios wherein there are multiple namespaces you use, and then you want to use file level access, things like that. That's how it is. Yeah. With that, I'll just go back to the previous one. Now, the next settings, which is not default, it's like we can enable public access from selected virtual network. So if I select on this, right, this is gonna show me by things of VNet, right? So it's like, as I mentioned, if you want to make sure that your storage account data can be only accessible within a particular network, right? This is the settings, right? So I can set my VNet here, and then this is set on top of my VNet, and then this is only accessible from those kind of subnets, right? Now disable public, use private. So private is little complex structure here. And then why private? It's more of a, we can have a private endpoint. If I click on that, that's anyway going to create another resource, right? So yeah, I've just clicked on this. So you create a private endpoint, right? So that works like I'd not say exactly VPN, but some sort of kind of VPN, which is like you can access restricted things over here. So you can have your own private network and then tie the storage account to it to make sure that it's only accessible through that, right? Now, if I go back to the previous one, all right, the next one is routing. So right now Microsoft network routing. So for example, what is the difference between internet routing and Microsoft routing? So internet routing is like it'll always use the internet to interact data, but Microsoft network routing is like if your storage account is sitting in one of the Microsoft data centers, right? Microsoft has its own network and own intelligence to figure out what is the shortest path, or what is the path which takes less hop to for a data to be available from one place to another place. So that's what the difference, how your traffic travels, your bit by bit data, how that gets accessed or how that travels from one place to another. All right, next one, if I go data protection. Now, protect your data for accidental and deletion and modification. And again, whatever you enable, it has some implication cost as well. So enable point in time restore for containers, right? So why we have to only for containers? Because let's say it's like Windows system recovery, right? Whenever we try to format our system, maybe we can create a recovery point, and then from there it will go. So if something happens over there, right, every time it keep on creating point in time recovery for the containers, and then it helps you to reset it back if some data loss happens, right? And you can also track whatever changes are there, whatever the versioning are there in the blobs, whatever changes are there in the feed. Yeah. And if you want to keep all the logs, you can keep it. If you want to delete it, maybe let's say if you have a compliance that you want to keep it only 30 days, you can keep it or delete them. It's totally up to you. So this is more of a data protection, or I would say if something went wrong or something gets deleted, right, how to retain it back. And also the track the changes over here, right? And also this comes with a multi-level access control, right? So it's version level immutability. So it's like time-based retention policy on account level. That will be, all your blob version will have specific access control to it. Yeah, some additional security or some additional data protection feature. So I'm going to disable for now. And this data protection tab is little tricky to plan as well. So it is always a good idea to talk to, basically whenever we are developing an application, right? It's always a good idea to talk to the business owners or maybe the business analyst, right? And along with the architect and technical team to understand what's the compliance and how to protect the data, and what happens if any point of time our data goes down or our data gets lost, right? That's something with this. Now the next one, if I see, click on encryption, right? So you can actually define what you want to encrypt. You can go for all, and it says the option cannot be changed after the storage account is created. That means everything within a storage account will be encrypted. So that means if someone is able to access physically your data, right, they cannot decrypt it. And there's a really nice feature over here, on encryption type. So there are so for some of them, some of you might know what encryption is at a basic level, right? It's like you use a key to encrypt data, and then you might need the key back to decrypt the data. Without that key, the data encrypted is meaningless, right? Now, even within that, right, Microsoft has provisions of providing you their own key, right? Or you can have, let's say, if you have so sensitivity around the data, you can have your own managed keys, right? You can create an encryption key and give it to Microsoft, and then maybe you can get it from a key vault, or maybe get it from a URL directly, right? And then that key will be basically used to encrypt and decrypt in the encryption process for all of your data and storage account, right? So I'm go back to this, and when I enable this customer managed keys, right, it has to be like there are certain other objects, or there are certain prerequisites, like you have to have key vault created where only the storage account should be able to access the key, nobody else. Because if someone gets the key, it's like equal to having a data. Someone can steal the data, and then they can decrypt the data, right? And also there's an option for infrastructure encryption. So even wherever the store on whatever infra the storage account is created, that also will be kind of encrypted, right? So with that, and go back to the default settings and check this piece, right? And go to tags. So tags is one of the features which helps you to make an identification marks. So maybe the tag can be like, MS resource usage, or let me give it a new name. I'd say owner is like, that's what I give it. And then purpose demo, and I'd say I would say environment is dev, P-L-O-P-M-E-N-T, development, right? The next one is review and create. So by the time I click on this, right, what Azure does is, you see, starting from basic, advanced networking, data protection, encryption, and tags, we have given some inputs, right, to make sure that we create the storage account exactly the way we need it. Now, this screen, right, this compiles all the inputs and make sure that all the inputs given are correct. That means whenever we're going to deploy, or whenever Azure is going to deploy the storage account or create the storage account, that should not have any issue with the input we have provided. And that's where this screen of review and create is given, right? So let us hit on create. And the moment you hit on create, right, the way Azure deploys is, if I just click on the bell icon, right? So it is submitting a deployment. So it's like, there is a concept called Azure Resource Manager, right? So that creates a template, and then that creates a deployment process in the Azure, right? And yeah, that's another way. Like, let's say going forward, if you want to deploy 50 storage accounts, right? So you can create a template, and then you can have your DevOps pipeline, wherein you can keep on pushing by just giving the right name and the location, maybe. Yeah. So by the time this deploys, I'll take up, are all types of storage encrypted, both the transit on rest, or you can configure this. So transit is always there, right? The rest one is something we have seen in the encryption, right? How it is encrypted. So if I understand your question correctly, rest in the sense of whenever it is sitting in Microsoft database, right? So, or Microsoft data center, it's already encrypted there, and then it's only shows you, right? So the default way it is, the data is encrypted there. Only thing, whenever it renders, it picks it up, decrypts the data, and shows in the Azure portal. Same thing for the API access as well. So by default, it's always encrypted. So whatever transit happens, be it like, Azure storage account to your application, or Azure storage account to Azure portal, it basically encrypts on the way, and then, sorry, decrypts on the way, and then shows you the data. Yeah. A storage account has all types of storage. Yep, there are four, I'd say, right? As you've seen. So there are four types of data storage, but again, there are different products in Microsoft Azure that you can leverage. For example, if you want to do a monitoring, you can use Azure Monitor or Log Analytics, or if you want to use of, telemetry, right? We have App Insights. Yeah. My God, I think I need to adjust my screen. I don't know if this looks better. This looks better, than will be great. Okay, so we could see the deployment is complete. And if I click on go to resource, the right. Now let's look at the resource, the way it is created. Now if you see, right, let's look at the resource, and then we go back to Azure homepage and come back here again. We give it a quick minute. It's loading, loading. where can we see the SAS keys to? Yeah, I'll come to that point in a while. It is in the left navigation, right? Let's go back to Azure by clicking on that. Let us click out to the storage account, right? And let's say this is storage account created, and then once I click on this, I'd collapse the bridge here. Now you see it just got provision. It's a fresh storage account, right? And on the okay, so I think we have an interesting question, which is more efficient in AWS and Azure. So fundamentally, that's a question to be answered in different dimensions. For example, why we need to use AWS or what's our need, right? That's where we position this, and then I think the coverage Microsoft has, right? It's a lot better than AWS in terms of feature availability or like the kind of product stack it has. So yeah, but again, with that, I'll not mention that it's it's like kind of perfect, but it also depends on the particular feature or particular business requirement we are trying to cover in. But yeah, Microsoft is way higher in terms of their product stack and maturity, I'd say. So now, as you can see, we have just given the resource group name, and then everything is basically available to be like available as like mentioned what's the disk state and what's the subscription ID, and also it has tags, right? And in the below, right, we can see secure REST API operations is enabled, storage account key is enabled, minimum TLS is 1.2. We have not enabled infrastructure description. We have allowed all the networks. So basically, whatever input we have given during the provisioning, right, it all available in as a part of the properties, right? So let me try to make my is my screen better now, because I could see some of you have questions around that. Yep. So now, coming back to the properties section, right, we can go to monitoring, right? Monitoring is like, as we have example, what matrices we want to cover, what other things. So it's like total egress, total ingress, average latency, and then request breakdown. All those can be seen itself as a part of monitoring. Next one is capabilities, and this is like more of a what additional things storage can do. You can enable Azure Defender, like so this is a good example wherein we talk about AWS or any other cloud vendor versus Azure. So with the huge product stack, uh, the way they are interrelated to each other. For example, we have a storage account, and then we can have Azure Defender to make sure it protects the storage account all in one. Like someone is trying to breach from an identified malicious IP address, and someone is trying to do a kind of phishing, and by using this URL, something like that, right? So all those things can be accessed or managed by Defender, and that's the correlation. And we could also have data protection, we could have lifecycle management, the entire. So it's like we can create rule-based policies for your storage account, like when it should go to purge, when it should be like change the state, and that's how it managed. The whole life cycle is managed, right? We can make it a CDN, right? And yeah, just to make sure that it works with Azure CDN, then whatever you put it's like get really faster on every push or every update. We can have a static website, right? Hopefully I'll try to show something around this, right, today. So with a storage account we can do all these capabilities, we can attain all these things, right? Security or private endpoint is something, it will be like, a privatized accessed storage account, wherein from a particular network only we can access it, not like everywhere we can access all the things, right? We can obviously tie it to a custom domain, right? uh, okay, so the versioning is again, that's part of the thing I'd like to take up as a part of the demo. um, I have another one. What if my data is hacked? So obviously, whenever we talk about hacking or getting data getting compromised, right? We have higher controls. One way is the way we design the storage account by properly securing to ensure it's the, only access is given to the right set of people and the right set of endpoints or servers, right? And it's basically, mostly we give a least privileged access, so whoever need what access, we only give them the same access. Now, yeah, if you have like, if you see it is compromised, all you can do is like, you can check on the access control and then maybe put some denies and remove access to everyone, so that even if your data is, or someone is able to access it, we identify them and then kind of make sure that they are not able to access the data anymore, right? Now we'll go to the recommendation one. So this is a good part about Azure here. So this tab tells you that what are the best practices available and what are the recommendation based on the product we have seen, right? And then we have actually followed all. That's what it says. And let's go to tutorials. Tutorial is nothing but Azure Microsoft documentation, right? And then you can obviously go to Microsoft Learn. Let me see if I can get you the data. So yeah, this should be the learning path, right? And then, if you just search for AZ managed storage, you get to see all the modules we're discussing over here: creating a blob, creating a storage security, and your file sync and storage with tools, storage account, things like that. And obviously you can have your own account to create it so that you can track your learning as well. Yeah, let me get back to the, yeah. Now, coming to developer tools, as we talk about, administration and development, right? Storage account has to be used by an application. That's the goal, that's the fundamental goal, right? It can be as an application within Azure, for example Azure function, or it can be a third party application, depending on whatever you do. So Azure has libraries and supports for all these client libraries, be it .NET, right? It has a client on .NET, it has like Python packages. Obviously Java is a must, so, and you can do it on TypeScript as well. That was like the client libraries it supports, right? Apart from that, you can have there is a free desktop tool, right, called Storage Explorer, which you can install in your Windows machine, and then you can connect to any storage account and then try to kind of interact with it from your desktop itself. You can use PowerShell, right? PowerShell is like a must thing for every administrator, right? And obviously you can use Azure CLI. So when you talk about CLI, right, so whenever we are logging into Azure portal, there is a quick button here, Cloud Shell. So if I just click on that, that gets open a black shell here, and then you can see this is a Cloud Shell, and this is again a command based tool. But the good part is like, you don't need to have anything installed in your local machine, where in PowerShell you might need to install a couple of things locally. Now, with Cloud Shell, you just need to attach it to a storage account because it has files and modules, and that's where you go. And let's say if I'm doing something in the storage account, sorry, in the CLI, right, to interact with storage account, I can close it, and then next time when I log in, I can again take it from there. So these are like management tools over here, right? And and there are a couple of options on the top, right? Upload the file. If you want to upload, you can upload to any blob, right? So let me try to close it for now. and I can open an Explorer. You can delete it. If you want to move the storage account to a different resource group or subscription, that's fine. You want to get a mobile look, you can. And obviously, you want to give feedback to Microsoft, you can. All right. So now each Microsoft product has its SLA on downtime, right? So same as storage account it is. Now the next thing is I think let me quickly jump onto the slide once again. Yeah, we can come back to this in a while once we have the demo. So I'm just trying to spend more time so that you can definitely refer Microsoft site to go through the documents, but wanted to show you something really live. All right. So in that developer tools, now by nature every product in Azure have a left navigation, and there are a couple of things which are common, right? Now if I click on activity log, that'll tell me, like, what are the activities, policy action I have listed, storage account keys, all those things are logged as a part of activity, and we can obviously filter that. The next one is basically on tabs, sorry, tags, and you can have tags. We can delete them all. And not go to diagnostics. It's like more of a problem diagnosis if you have something. If not, the next thing is access control, right? So if I go to access control, right, it's going to take maybe a moment to load. So in access control, we can actually control who can see and who cannot see your data. So and obviously, access given at a higher level. So for example, if I view my access, you see I am a service administrator, right? So I have like full access to all the resources and subscription. So it's like a top down approach. So if you really want to do it at a at a level of resources, let's say storage account, you can do that as well. So to make sure that you manage them at a storage account level only, you can deny things like that. And also you can use an identity to add access to. So for example, if you are having an application which needs to talk to your storage account, and that's like an Azure function, or that's a Azure web application, right? So each of them can be a managed identity. So when we go to Azure function or any other application, you can turn on the identity for that, and you can assign that managed identity permission here. So even as a user, right, when you are outside that when you're outside that particular application, as a user you might not be able to see the storage account data, but through the context of the application, that should be able to help you with the data itself, right? So let me see any questions. Okay, I think one question: what's the difference between a global admin and a service account? Sorry, service admin. So fundamentally, service is like you're supposed to provide service, so you will have access to a subscription, right? But a global admin is someone who is having access to your Azure Active Directory, and then you can attach subscription to it. Yeah, that's the difference, I'd say. All right. Now, data migration is something obviously available, but if we could look into the containers, right? And as we have seen in the past, there are four different offerings. We have containers, we have file shares, we have queues, we have tables, right? And as you can see, by default two things are already available, right? Now with that, what happens is you know anybody try to access the storage account or any feed changes in the blob, these logs gonna be get generated there. So now I would say we can we can give it a name, maybe demo container. And I'd say you can use any of the policies, but I would not go even in advance. Also, you can select there's nothing available, so you cannot go much. So let me just create with default settings a container, right? And you know, let me see if I can get you something. Let's go to sample file. I'm gonna create a file and upload it for you quick. Well, this is what I do, and then let me try to make it two just for the CSV. Yeah. So I just created two files, right? And then I'm gonna go to that container and upload them and hit the upload button and quickly change this. So I have two files. Yeah, I select them both, open it. All right. And I can say override if exists and upload it. They uploaded. All right. So now this was the kind of simple part, right? Making and uploading. And I'd say I'd add some more text here and try to upload this again. Try to upload this again and then see. It says it's already exists, right? So I'm just gonna check this and upload it once again. You see now let's see. Let's look at the text file. Go to versions. Is the latest version available here? So that's how make it happen. And then let me try to go back to the one and say blob changed. So there'll be some logs generated around that. So should be that way to do it. Even in the logs also you should be able to find, okay, there's no access logs yet. So yeah. So that's fundamentally to how to create a blob and then how to create a container. And then once in a container, these are like the blob files, which is very small in my case, but you can actually go a little higher as well, right? Now now there are different ways we can create shared access token, right? One at a file level, one at a container level. So let me try to create a, when I click on that, we can click either on this way, right? Or we can just try to right click on this and then go to generate SAS. When I generate SAS, what happens is, you see, I'm going to go create account key, and then it has like a start date, it has the expiry date. By default it's like a day, right? And then I can do it for allowed IPs even, right? I can do it for HTTP HTTPS both. So let me do this and generate a SAS token. The moment to generate it, right, there's a URL given. So if I just copy this URL and I'm going to open an incognito window where I have not logged in, I'm just pasting that, and you see that got downloaded, right? So that was a quick demo of how to generate SAS token, right? So that's one way of, if you want to really share something at a file level, or let's say you have a website wherein you have zipped all the binaries and you want to share that, but in case you want to do it at a little higher level, we have access keys. So you can see there are access keys and there are connection strings, and then I think, yeah, I'm going to click on show keys on top here, and then these are the options here. And obviously we can rotate the key, or we can set a reminder even, so that automatically key rotation will happen and then it changes, from one to two. That's how it is. So this is kind of a policy control thing, and in that way you are like more secure here. Yeah. Now, again, on the shared access signature part, we can do it at a whole level, like the entire all thing, one single SAS signature. What we did for only one file, we can do it like read, write, delete, list, everything like a you know single shared one, and we can only generate two. So yeah, that was there, based on how much data we upload or fixed capacity. So it's more of a how much data we upload. There's nothing like you have to book like 10 GB or something like that. So it's as and when you go, that's how the billing will be there. Yeah. Now, again, on the encryption part, if I may go, you can see by default it's Microsoft managed, and that's how it is. I'll skip the different cloud part, right? So before we jump on to the next section, right, I would like to quickly come back to the slide and just look at whatever we have been discussing, so that so we had a quick demo, and we showed the blob storage. you know um, as I mentioned, there can be multiple things, and then we can do things whatever we want to do, actually store copy, storing blob objects, things like that. And then you know um, there's a hierarchy thing. So all the blobs has to be in a container. There can be any number of container you want to create, and that's how the blob service is created, right? And it's like we can go based on hot tier, cold tier, and then anything you can switch between these. So next one is kind of we talked a little bit about the data lifecycle, right? For any data we have, right, it can be based on data lifecycle. So first one, we just make it in hot storage, which we did just in demonstration. That's a hot storage. That's how we go to cool. We go to archive, and then if data is not required, right, we can just you know delete the blob. And as I can see, there are policies, or there are rules can be applied, right, on a data management cycle. All right. So it's like if you want to archive a data after 2 months or maybe 60 days, all those things can be achieved by a policy or a rule. So it's like that manages a whole data life cycle, right? Now there is an option to replication as well. The way replication works, right, you can either do it a manual replication, or you can actually replicate across multiple regions, right? And replicating will, so always replicating might sound that it's going to give you a higher bill, but maybe by replicating, let's say you have a global application, now you have most of our user base in Asia, and then rest of them in Europe, right? So by replicating in both the one of the nearest data centers will definitely give you a better user experience, and that might be something better than a cost at times, right? And then you can have authentication, and then you can have your own way of writing and uploading blobs. So I think we just looked at the demo as well. And we also talked about SAS parameters, and then how to review the security strategies, right? And how to create customer managed keys, how to create security best practices, things like that. So with that, let me quickly jump back to the demo environment once again. Okay, I think I have a question from Nishant that I have one more question. How administrators square their SAS token and keys in production project? Okay, so that's a good question. Let me see if I can show you real time. Right, so there'll be ways we can so first of all, this portal will keep a track of the SAS token and the keys from here itself, right? But if there are multiple cases, right, we can use another service, right, Azure Key Vault, to store and save all the SAS tokens and keys, so that those are like kept as a kind of audit trails and things like that. Yeah. Now coming to the your application which you talked about, right? So right now it's an East US, right? That's how it is. And then storage endpoint, if I want to see, as we have seen, if you look at, this is the storage account name dot blob dot code dot windows dot net. So the blob service is available at this endpoint, and the table, the queue, and all other things, right? And this is one interesting thing I'm going to show you. So for example, this is a link of a primary static website. So what is the static website? A website don't have like JavaScript or dynamic control maybe. So that can be stored. I'll not say exactly JavaScript, but it's like no dynamic content. So if I just try to open that here, right? Uh, I think we'll not get anything because it's not found, right? Now let's come to this, close this out, and then I'd quickly go to website, static website. If I search data center management, and we will enable it, right? And I'd say index.html, right? So now now after I did that, right, you see, if I just go back to the containers, one of the new container gets created called web, right? So if I go inside that, right, let's click on that, and in my local machine I'll try to quickly create a know, HTML file here. So give me a moment, I'm trying to create something, and then and HTML div, and right. I just created a file over here locally. I'm gonna say save it and name it index.html. Yes, want to rename and then see one catch is this doesn't copy this way. I so we have to click on upload and uh, I think something happened to my portal. Let me try to log in once again and quickly switch my subscriptions. Yeah, and let's go to the storage account and I'd go to containers and go back to containers, go to the web section. Let me see if I can upload one file here. So upload this and we have name index.html, right? And it's uploaded. So hopefully last time when I see the website did not exist, this time you see the small website is available here. So that means as long as we have static data, this is again another feature I'm just trying to show. So fundamentally it's a blob and I'm just storing some files into a blob called $web and making it public. So if you have an application, even you can build your basic static website with storage account as well. You don't need to have like a website and then Azure websites as a resource, right? So that was one of the example we can achieve with kind of storage account. All right. Okay, now the next one is data protection. And this is again the same settings what you have seen during provisioning. And then, I'm gonna go to lifecycle management next, right? And we can add a rule as you've seen. And I'd say deletion rule. Apply the rules for all. You can apply for some. And if I go to next, yeah, so we can choose one of these and this will be effective immediately. And then this is what will be acting as a policy over here. Yeah. And next one is Azure Search. So if we enable it, it comes, right? The settings section goes with the configuration, right? And then this is again just another set of configuration what we have asked in the beginning. And if we want to do resource sharing, we have course option here as well. So more of a standard features, right, from which we want to enable our services to be accessed. And again, if I go to endpoints, it's gonna be showing all the endpoints whichever we have seen in the past as well. So everything has a URL, right? That's why, because it forms a URL for each and every storage account, that's why it asks the storage account name to be very unique, right? Yeah. And logs is one of the feature itself in Azure resourcing, which is basically, if you want to add a resource group log, you want a subscription log, these basically makes accidental deletion avoided. So if you apply lock with some notes, by default you cannot delete it once, so you have to come and unlock and then delete it. Next section we have seen, it's like the monitoring. You can do monitorings and then you can go to all the features you have, right, in that, and then what are the failures, what the performance, and then things like that. And that's how you go with the monitoring. All right. So before I move further, I'll just again take a pause here for any questions. Let me see. Any questions in that? Okay. So just because we talked a lot about cost, right? I'm going to bring up Azure Cost Calculator. And again, it's a public resource available. So you can actually go to Azure Resource Calculator and then azure.microsoft.com/pricing/calculator. And if I select storage account, right? So there's a little things to be clarified. By default, it says the region, right? That's one deciding factor. Second, what kind of storage we want to keep it there. What's the tier? If I go back to, let's say standard, and then what kind of access tier, hot, cold, archive, and this comes with the data cycle management, right? So let's say if you are making it cool storage after a week, so first 1 week will be charged for hot, and next will be like cool and archival, things like that. On redundancy, and yeah, so if I just minimum, so when I say, you know when I say you are only charged, so it has to be at least a gigs. That's how the calculator says. So let me see. Yeah, so that's how the charging are, and then how much write you do totally, and then how much container list and create. So it's more of a not exactly on query, but it's the combination of first thing is how much data you're keeping, and what is the way you're trying to access it. For example, how many times you're trying to write the operations, how many times you're listing them, what are the read operations you're doing. So and that includes API operations and all. So I just thought, because we discussed a lot about cost, so little bit of explanation would help here. Yeah, feel free to use this particular UL, and try to assess, do some calculation on your own, so you'll have a better understanding. So this is kind of an experience you should have, even when you are not even creating this actual thing. Yeah. So coming back to the slides, let me see. And I'll quickly touch base on other services as well. We talked about containers, we talked about file shares. So it's like you can create a file share over here, which is mapped to one of your devices, and then maximum capacity is 5 TB, right? And then what is the maximum IOs, what is the ingress rate, what is the egress rate, all those things calculated, and that's how you create. And you can give any name to the file share, and that's how it works. So whatever you keep physically in the file, it comes and gets as a part of share. And same thing goes for the queues. So you can have a queue and then start using in an application, right? And the rest is one is tables, right? So any questions, any comments so far? Okay. Okay. So the next part is a little bit of hands-on, and no, I hope you'll be getting the slide link as well. But I'm just trying to focus more on the real demo so that you can see this recording later, and then remember the navigation and how it looks like. Yeah. So on the networking piece, as we have seen in the past, it's like we can enable all networks. We can select the network and the IP ranges. If we want to, we can disable it, and then that should be it. So by default, for example, if we provision a storage account or a database, right, we can actually filter it like I want to add my IP address, so that even you have access. If you are not having your IP address added, you will not be able to access the storage, right? So, and within that also we can go for exceptions, right? So let me see what else. Yes. So those are a couple of things I'd say to understand. Let me say, okay, about Azure Storage. So coming back to the base, tables work as database. To some extent, yes, but they are not hierarchically. I mean, let me try to create one and show you. So storage table 01. Yeah. So you can access this as a table, and that should be it. So basically, it's not like you cannot relate two tables and then kind of build a hierarchy things. That's where you go for Azure SQL. Yeah. So now again, coming to summarizing the entire storage account. So storage account is one of the Azure offerings, right, which can be used standalone for your data storage, or can be used as a kind of data storage for your application, right? Now, depending on what kind of data you are planning to choose to keep it there, you can decide how much, what are the geolocations it should replicate in, and what is the access tier it should be in, or from a compliance standpoint, should we enable a data delete option, should we enable soft delete option, things like that. And then once we decide at the security and location, we should also try to measure. Let's say my application is going to have maybe on an average monthly 100 gigs of data stored, right? And this application will also have like this much of ingress, IOPS, and things like that. So basically, what will the traffic, so it's not exactly the query, what's the traffic carrying through the storage account from my application as a whole, you get the bill. So that's the summarization on the bill, right? So let me jump back if I missed anything. Think this one section, we can definitely try to get data migration across all the places we want to. So for example, if we want to data transfer, there are multiple things. You can create jobs over here, right, and then keep on transferring the data set. That's more of a data migration. And then even if you're doing data center migration, right? And there's a tool called Az-copy, right? And that's does a brilliant job of copying your data from basically on premises to maybe Azure, or within Azure, things like that. And if you really want to do that, install Az-copy tool and then try to put some data. Yeah, those are all free. All right. So with that, I think that brings us towards the end of our session today. I would just like to thank you, all the organizers as well as all the attendees, for taking out your time. Okay, I think we have one. If you can demo Storage Explorer, let me see if I can show you Storage Explorer. Let me see there. Yeah, definitely. As we are live in the portal, me see. I don't think I have the tool in this machine. I mean, it is. Let me try to download it if I can. So this is the Storage Explorer, right? And then let me download it, and it should start, and then yeah, it will take a while. So I'll try to log in here and show you how it looks like. Yeah. So I just clicked on that. Should be showing me an installer shortly in one of the screens. I don't have that installer, but in the meantime, let me try to show you the alternate we use for it came up, so I'm installing that in my machine and then see if that works, right? That show this is how it looks like. I agree. Install. Preparing to install. I'm gonna close it. So I'd say let's see the storage browser in the meantime, and I think I'll let it install and then and you all can go ahead and install this at least how to understand the look and feel of the tool. Yeah, so it's gonna take a while. So yes, um, so far we have seen an Azure portal. So this is more of a native tool, so it has to be installed, you know, in our machine so that we can interact with the storage account much more easily. So in the meantime, I'm installing this. Anyone else have any questions? Please feel free. Assuming I've created a storage account and so assuming I've created a storage account and using it just for blobs, is there a way I can delete all the blobs? I can delete storage account used as well, or should I delete it? It's totally up to you, sir. I mean, the way you want to do it. So if I come here, right, to the storage account and I'll let it load by the time my installer opens, right? So you see, let me click on delete. I'll let it load, delete. So you see, I can delete this, or if it is not, see this. So basically, it will ask me what are the things there, so you can delete them separately as well. Yeah, yeah. I think let's launch. Let me see. It's opening. I'm gonna bring up this tool here, and you know, this session was more of a to get you an understanding how storage account is. This if you really want to go to the content, right, go to Microsoft content, and then that's the best place to track. Even you can have your login there, and then track your progress as well. So let us do quick access. I can do a local storage account and storage account attached. I can have an emulator, right? It is more of a local thing if you do not have access to Azure. uh, I'd say I want to connect to storage account only. Connect to the SAS. See, there are different options. So let me go back, and I want to go to sign into as a subscription. It's on Azure. Next, and let me see if it asks me to. Yeah, so it went to the browser, and I log in here, and it should be here. Let me see. So it says authentication complete. You can come return. So I'm gonna close this browser tab, come back to storage. You see the left navigation got refreshed, and then I have access to all my subscriptions. So let me filter out this tenant. This is what our working tenant is. Open Explorer. I'm going to expand Visual Studio. It's gonna show me this. Storage account, disks, everything related to storage you can see. So if I just open this, and below, just whenever I clicked on that, right, it showed me the properties as well here. I primary key you want to see, because I have logged into Azure, so you have access to everything. Yeah. Well, blobs to containers, and let's go to the web. And you can see that. And if I open it, yeah, it should open for me, right? Yep, I think that was again a short demo of the Storage Explorer tool as well. So with that, I'd like to thank again the organizers and to each and every participant, and wish you the best for your upcoming Microsoft certification exams, right? So yeah, and if you still have any questions, or going forward when you go through the actual content, if you have any questions, not only on specific to storage, it can be anything on Azure, right? Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I should be happy to help you. Yeah.
That's really amazing, Shamik. I hope everyone's doubts are clear now. So now I would like to invite Mr. Saurav Raghuvanshi to announce our week 1 challenge winner.
Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Samik for delivering such an amazing session. So thanks a lot, Samik. I hope everyone must have learned a lot from this session, and I personally find it very much informative. So without wasting time, let me just share the PPT presentation. Then we can announce the winner. I hope my screen is visible. Can anyone confirm in the chat?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this was the weekly challenge too, and when I was going through all the blogs that you guys have written or the posts that you have written, it was quite amazing to see that. Like I think a couple of people are just a college student from second year, first year, third year. It quite make me feel like no, we are doing a quite amazing work, and this definitely the skill that you are gaining, blogging about technical things about cloud. This is definitely going to help you a lot in your career, whatever you want to pursue. And before announcing the winner of this week, I would like to say this is not just the people who did great. There are at least 20 to 30 more people who have done a tremendous work. Their blog are quite amazing. Just there is little bit up and down. Because of that only we have choose like, and we have a restriction to choose only 7 or 8 winners per week. So definitely those who are not get selected this time, definitely don't get demotivated. Keep doing the work. As we said that like every week we are going to have a winner, and we are considering everything from the week 1 to week 8, whatever you are doing, to announce the winner. So without wasting the time, are you guys are excited? Can I see chat in the chat some excitement? Because I'm not going to show the result until I see some excitement in the chat. Okay, looks good. Looks Pepper excited. So can we show the result, or we can wait a little bit more to see more excitement about it? So
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah. They
without
are
wasting the
saying,
time,
sorry to interrupt, they are saying that they
yeah.
can't wait.
Okay. So this is the week 1 winner. Again, before showing this, I would like to say there is a lot of more people who have done tremendous work. Their name definitely will be coming in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned and don't lose hope by just by the first week itself, because this is the first week winner, right? So considering week 1 and week 2. So here is the result. So these are all the 8 people who got selected for week 2, considering week 1 and week 2 itself. And soon someone from Azure Developer Community or Reskill will reach out to you for your addresses and details so that we can get your goodies, Microsoft goodies delivered to your addresses. So once again, I would like to repeat that this is not the end. Like this is just 8 people who got selected for this week. We have more 6 week coming up, and definitely we are going to have 7-8 winners each week, and we are going to consider whatever you have written in this week also will be considered for upcoming winner announcement also. So keep your motivation high, keep doing whatever you are doing. So just keep motivating yourself, and the one who won this bootcamp, this journey doesn't end here. You have to keep contributing so that you can also be in top 50 winner for the Azure certification vouchers, to the Whizlabs subscription, Azure passes, and much more. So you also have to keep contributing the same way you are doing as of now. So once again, congratulations to all the 8 people. So now coming to week 3 challenges. So in the week 2, what we have seen that like people have written blog about what all they have learned in the complete session that we had on week 2. But now this time what we want that you come up with a little bit of case study or little bit of some demo type of thing, or like we must say lab. Just go little bit deep about any particular service. Let's say you want to talk about containers. Just don't go with the overview of all the services. Go little bit deep about particular service. Like let's say you're picking containers. Just go a little bit deep. Talk about what all the things you can able to do with the containers. What all do's and don'ts of the containers. So that like if there is let's say 50 people or 70 people or 100 people are going to write the blogs, each people will going to write something different, and this will keep the community growing, because that will help other people to also learn okay what you have studied or what that person have written. So this will keep this learning more useful, or this blog more useful for the others also. So that was the intention. Once again, I would like to repeat, just keep the, like, you have to keep the blog little bit in depth. Like, you can just choose one particular service. Let's say you are choosing Blob, or you are choosing, let's say, some mini project type on, let's say, how to host a static website on using blob storage. You have seen, like Samik have shown in the demo itself. So you can come up with something like that only, and you can show like what is the use case of that particular thing, and you can show some like hands-on part also. Let's say how to deploy this thing, or how to create a static website using the blob storage, or anything as such. So that is the week 3 challenge. I hope you are excited for week 3. So once again, I would like to thank the team who is working so hard from content creation to making this bootcamp reachable to everyone. So once again, thank you everyone. Thanks to the whole team. Apart from them, thanks to Azure, Microsoft Azure, Reskill, Whizlabs, everyone who is supporting this bootcamp at the end. Thanks to all of you guys, the one who is sitting on the Saturday evening and attending this bootcamp, and like you choose to upskill yourself on Saturday, on the weekend day. It is definitely going to help you a lot in your career growth. So with this note, I would like to conclude my part of the presentation. I will hand over to Yashasvi once again for the conclusion. Over to you, Yashasvi.
Yeah, so I would really like to thank Mr. Saurav Raghuvanshi for announcing the week 2 challenge winners, and I also want to thank Shamik Roy for such an informative session. I'm certain that this session, the students gain and the participant gain the knowledge will definitely help them in their career opportunities. So thank you so much, Shamik. And I am also thankful to all the participants who gathered here and make time from their busy schedule. So, congratulations to all the winners, and please do fill the form that we sent you already via email. So, yeah, that's all from our side. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everyone.